modern medicine can extend our lives to the point that we are in a desperate state, but we're still alive. Normally, our bodies would not get to that point and we would automatically die.
Hey guys, me Dr. G. Finally, I have Dr. Danenberg on. We were just speaking about different things, but I was just speaking with you guys about the mental aspects of life and disease, and how we're so quickly to jump on the nutritional aspect, which I think is paramount and very important in the movement and exercise and getting blood flow and all that. But we don't really embrace or even begin to understand the mental aspect. And I think that may be even more important or equally important. But, you know, as I said before, I said, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And I've had many wonderful teachers, but whether Dr. Danenberg realized or not, he's been a huge, I've been learning a lot from him because he's in a place, not quite where I am, but a place that we're all going to be at one point or another, because that's the one thing we're all guaranteed is what? Pay taxes and die. But so he's dealing with, he's in the trenches. So that's the title. So from the trenches, I'm going to bring Dr. Danenberg on.
Here I am.
Good afternoon, sir.
I am crawling out of the trenches just to speak with you guys.
Thank you so much.
Oh, listen, it's always a pleasure. You know that.
Well, bring us up to date. I mean, you're back in the rehab facility because why?
Yeah, so just generally speaking, I'll give you an idea where I am for those that don't know me. September 2018, I'm diagnosed with a form of aggressive multiple myeloma. It had affected all of my skeleton, so that if you looked at an X-ray, for example, a CT scan, a PET scan, you would see holes like Swiss cheese littered throughout my skeleton. That's how I presented, unfortunately. So it had been there for years. I would suggest decades, and I think it actually went back to my dental training with toxic substances that I was exposed to, but we can talk about that at a later time. But basically, I was given 3 to 5 months to live. And most people, including my oncologist, thought I would be dead by the end of December 2018. I did not elect normal conventional treatment. I went to a non-conventional, more supplemental, holistic, you can define it in a variety of ways, but not a conventional chemical driven total body destruction, total body or immune destruction method of treating my disease. And the reason was, and my oncologist was very honest with me, he said, my disease is not curable. If I did go through a cocktail of chemotherapeutic agents, they would put me in remission. I would be fine for a while. It could be weeks, months, years, and then I would get the disease again, or it would manifest again. And then I'd have to have a more severe, more caustic cocktail to bring it under control, because it wouldn't respond to the old drugs. And I would go through this up and down therapeutic treatment until I succumbed to the disease and I would die. But the important thing is, my quality of life was slowly decreased during this period of time. My goal, all of this journey with treating my cancer, was to maintain a quality of life. I did not care about longevity. If it was time for me to die because my quality of life could not be defined the way I wanted it to be defined, I was ready to die. So I did extremely well until maybe March of 2019, when I had a couple pathological fractures in my vertebra, and I had to deal with that. And I recovered. And then the most serious damage occurred on August 21st, when I was walking with my rollator in my bathroom, brushing my teeth and cleaning my mouth, and I turned and pivoted on my right leg to put the toothbrush back on the sink. And if anybody is familiar with osteoporotic lesions in the bone, they're very brittle. It's not osteoporosis, but that's the type of bone structure I have. When I twisted, my right leg literally cracked in half, my femur. I fell to the ground, and I bounced off the ground. My right ribs were severely bruised and completely severed my right humerus. Severed my right humerus. So they rushed me to the hospital. I felt this is the time I was going to die. And I was prepared to die. I was in hospice. They fixed my leg because if I didn't get it fixed, the broken bones that looked like broken chicken bones would have pierced my femoral artery, and I would have bled to death. So they fixed my right leg. They left my arm broken, and I was on lots of drugs. During that period of time, the Hurricane Dorian was reaching Charleston. The entire hospital was evacuated. I had to go home. My wife scrambled to get a hospital bed. And then when I got home, the power went out, and hospital beds are electrical in nature. So the hospital bed couldn't move. I couldn't move. It was absolutely miserable. But I recovered. I had physical therapy for about 3 weeks. And I did phenomenally well. I was walking with a walker. I could walk outside. I can get in a car. I went to dinner with my wife. I went shopping with my wife. Everything was great. One day, actually 2 weeks ago, I'm laying in my bed. I do alternate therapeutic modalities, and one is a pulse electromagnetic field mat. I was laying on the mat as I got up and twisted. I now broke my left femur. It didn't fracture in half. It just broke a small part, but the pain was intense, and I knew I couldn't stand or I would crash to the ground. Called EMS, they fixed my leg, and now I am in a rehab facility at the hospital. I've been here for a little more than a week. I'm going to be discharged sometime next week, and I'm recovering. Here you go.
Wow. I just no other words, but wow.
Yeah. So the only thing that's not really repaired is my right humerus. And you showed a picture of my right humerus, which almost looks like I have two elbows. Well, the first elbow is literally my right humerus fractured, healing at a very weird angle with a huge callus of bone growing around the fracture, which has actually stabilized the arm. Looks kind of bizarre because it's angled, but I have very little pain. I have limited motion on my arm and my shoulder, but rehab is starting to work with that, as well as my left leg that was broken.
Does the orthopedic surgeon, does he think there's ever going to be a type of union, or that's
No, as a matter of fact, he was rather surprised that I have functioned like I have. He actually came to see me 2 or 3 days ago. He said there's no need for a brace. The only option would be to refracture the bone, put it in a splint, and let it heal. But the problem is, again, if you look at the picture, you can see shadows within the bone structure, distal and proximal to the fracture, and those shadows are literally holes, big lytic lesions. If the orthopedic surgeon tried to break it, I think the humerus could shatter, and I may not even have the use of an arm. So I'm comfortable leaving it the way it is.
the hallmark characteristics of multiple myeloma bone cancer is what? A moth-eaten appearance on the x-ray?
Yes, yes. When I was in dental school, we saw these pictures of mandibles that looked like you said, moth-eaten, or just holes, radiolucent holes throughout the mandible.
Swiss cheese, so to speak.
Right. So my skeleton looks like that. In essence, my skeleton cannot support the normal weight of my body. So if I twist, which is something I'm very aware of today, if I twist, I could have another pathological fracture. So my movements are somewhat jerky, so that I'm not twisting. I just step up and down on my feet to literally pivot slowly, but not twist.
Can I get tough on you now?
Yes, be tough.
Okay.
Beat me up like my physical therapist and
Oh
occupational
no,
therapist.
not gonna beat. No, I did physical therapy with my wife yesterday, and that I understand that feeling.
But it's so good because it really slowly gets you back into a state of health.
She had me get on the floor, and it was the most humbling thing in the world.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I can't get on the floor, that's for sure.
I need help getting up. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Well, let's take everybody back
Yes.
to your life from my perspective. So you're a man that went to dental school. Now, dental school is hard enough to get in, but you went to dental school. Now, in order to go to a specialty practice, you need to be not only pass dental school, but you have to excel. You have to be accepted in the specialty program. So he accepted in a specialty program, gum specialist or doctor of periodontics, or different. So he went through that and he excelled at that. And he in the meantime, he's written 2 books. Now he's on his 3rd book. He's become a leader in the field. He had a stroke, I believe, and or heart attack, and he took on this whole idea of functional medicine. So you're talking about a very, very successful man in his field, written many books, a successful marriage and children, and he's changed over to functional medicine, changes over his diet 100%, changed over his mentality and everything 100%, and all of a sudden, whammo, one day he goes to the doctor and says, "You have bone cancer."
Right.
How do you deal with this? Because you had
you have to come from a state of mind that is not in denial, number one. So I never was in denial. You have to come from a state of mind that you believe you're comfortable with your soul and your life on this earth. So I have an opinion based on quite a bit of reading that our souls are immortal, our physical bodies are not. Our soul inhabits this physical body at a time to learn lessons in life on this earth. And then when it's time, if those lessons are learned correctly or not, whatever, when it's time, my soul leaves my body. Again, this is my belief. I'm not suggesting anybody believe this, but a lot of people do. And then I go back into, let's say, the spirit world. I review my life with, I would call them guides. You could call them angels or whatever, and discuss my slow accomplishments to rise to or transcend to different levels of spirituality. And then other lessons that I need to learn, or if I didn't learn this lesson well enough, I re-enter another body, a baby, a fetus, at some point in time, and again believe that I am given a chance to learn more lessons and slowly evolve. Now, this is a theory that is promoted by a number of people. Michael Newton, who is a hypnotherapist, has done research with thousands of patients and has written several books, 2 of which are classic, in my opinion, that describes these events through the hypnosis with these patients. They are brought into a super high level of consciousness so that they recall these things. Interestingly, his patient load is from all over the world with all different ages and religious backgrounds and non-religious backgrounds like atheists. And when they get into this super conscious state, their stories are remarkably similar. And this is a comfort level that I have. So when I believe that I'm here for a purpose, and this is my purpose, dealing with this disease, having the attitude I have to not only muddle through it, but learn from it and maybe teach others how to cope with disasters like this, and not necessarily always accept everything that is told to them by the conventional medical world. We are energetic beings. Our bodies are literally functioning because of electrical energy. And if we can control our mind and control some of this electricity in our bodies, our auras, our generation of ATP, which is the battery of the cell within the mitochondria, this may create healing potential that certainly chemical drugs could never touch. And I believe this. So, you know, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I have a good quality of life. And this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so to break it down further then, so you've given yourself a philosophy that life has a purpose, a higher purpose that you may or may not understand.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so you're just a participant?
Correct. But not only a participant, I'm an active participant. I direct myself. You know, we have free will. We direct ourselves to do things.
Sure.
And from my understanding, from reading, especially Michael Newton's work, but there are a variety of other people like Dr. Ray Moody, who's a physician who coined the term near-death experiences. Another gentleman, Robert Monroe, who coined the term out-of-body experiences. These are documented accounts from thousands and thousands of people that makes sense to me. And we, as a soul, spiritual, energetic being, have the ability to decide when it's time for us to come back into a body to learn another lesson. Or if we progress far enough, we evolve to meet this phenomenal, unbelievable, powerful, all-encompassing energy force, which we call God.
So if in order you to accept the fact that life has a higher purpose, I mean, that involves, that's a pretty big leap, no? I mean, it involves, you have to, I hate to use the word ego because the ego has so many connotations, but you have to die to self a little, would you say?
Yes. Define what you just said.
Well,
so
I guess I'm
understand.
define this. Die to self, I guess, in my meaning means to realize that I'm not in charge as much as I thought. That there's a lot going on out there, and I'm a small cell in the cosmos.
Well, I think we do have control, but we don't have ultimate control. So we are exposed to experiences that we must make decisions about. And these decisions, they're not necessarily right or wrong. They just create different outcomes. So if the outcome, as we define it as a human being, is not good, that's not necessarily not good. It's just, this is an outcome that we've experienced that is not the positive human outcome we want. It's still a learning experience. Let's not forget that you can't understand good if you don't understand bad. You can't understand happiness if you don't understand sadness. If you're happy all the time, are you really happy? Because you've not, everything is relative in life, I believe. So you have to understand or experience the extremes to appreciate anything that is on the continuum from the worst to the best.
Yeah, that's rather profound what you just said. So if there's never rain, you're never going to appreciate the sunshine.
Correct. It just rains all the time. This is what you are accustomed to. You don't know what sunshine is. You don't know, if you're living in a cold climate, you never know what warmth is.
So this diagnosis comes to you, and of course, this was unwarranted, just blindsided.
It was blindsided, totally blindsided.
So you had a choice at that moment.
Yes.
to get disparaged and get aggressively angry and seclude yourself,
Yes.
or not.
Yes.
And you chose or not.
Yes. So the reason I chose or not was that I thought it was a wow moment, a moment, it was an epiphany. And I realized for the first time in my entire life, and I was diagnosed at the age of 71, I'm 72 now. I realized all of a sudden that I was faced with my mortality. I never considered dying, although I knew I was going to die, and I knew I had a comfortable belief system in my soul, but I never had that personal experience. Now, I did have a stroke at 59. It wasn't life-threatening. I couldn't speak for 2 or 3 weeks. I got over it very quickly. That's how I changed my lifestyle and diet, and I did some phenomenal things. Just like Terry Walls did some phenomenal things and recovered because she changed lifestyle and diet. So this was something that I could do. I could not recover from this disease. I knew that it was terminal. And the only thing that I could do was, like you said, make a decision to engage in a pity party and blame anybody and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could say, well, I'm not dead yet. What can I do to maintain the quality of life, knowing that this is going to kill me? Now, at that time, I was given a prognosis of 3 to 5 months, maybe 3 to 6 months, but I knew that if it were that case, in those 3 to 6 months, I wanted to do things. So my wife and I, specifically me, but my wife and I decided on setting up my desires to do the things I wanted to do before I died. So we had certain things we wanted to accomplish, and we did, and we listed that, and we accomplished that all by the end of December 2018, because I didn't know if I was going to live any longer. My bucket list was completely completed, so to speak. We started to think in terms of getting together with family that we hadn't seen in a long time. Every family has some dysfunctional moments. I had members of my family that didn't even speak to one another. All of a sudden, what's amazing is my disease brought everybody together. So if nothing else, everybody seemed to get along all of a sudden. So we started to have more contact. All the material things in the world meant absolutely nothing at that point. The memories that we had, the memories that we could make in maybe the short period of time that I had to live were really critical. And my wife was right on board with me. She doesn't have the belief system like I have, which is fine, but she certainly is on board with me. And we talk about death all the time. I talk about with my 2 adult children about death all the time. I've talked to my grandchildren about death occasionally. That's really up to their parents how they want to present it to them, because they're young. But death is not a word that is hidden or shoved under the carpet. We express our feelings about death. And another thing that's today helps people who are maybe dying is an organization called hospice, because hospice is not just to give you medicines to help you die comfortably, although they do that. What the hospice does is tremendous religious, if you're into religion, or spiritual, if you're into spiritual, or even if you're an atheist, suggestions of what life means, and helping you, the patient, and the family members cope and deal with the issues that can occur during the journey between now and when end of life might be. This is a beautiful thing. I mean, this is something that I've never thought about until I had to realize that my life could be ending very shortly. It didn't. And it's been over a year now that I've done my non-conventional treatment, although I use conventional treatment and pick and choose the best of the conventional world when it makes sense to me, but I didn't use any chemicals that were going to destroy my immune system. It never made sense to me to use chemicals that are that are not specific to the immune system, just kill the immune system and then rebuild it. It would make sense to consider therapeutic measures that pinpoint and identify specifics of a malignant cell to kill that cell. And that's what I'm starting to engage in now. But just a general all kill cocktail of chemicals and then rebuild everything could not make sense to me at all.
Yeah, it was always my thought that they nearly kill you, then they rebuild
Yeah.
you.
Now immunotherapy now, and I'm starting to I will start a treatment that is going to identify a very specific protein that is part of the malignant plasma cells, and this particular monoclonal antibody attaches to that plasma cell because of the protein and causes that plasma cell to die. The only problem is that red blood cells and T cells have some of these proteins on their surface, so there are some complications or side effects. But where I am now, it makes sense to try to target the malignant plasma cells and then deal with any of those side effects by building my immune system, which I do in an unconventional way, and also the health of my hemoglobin and red blood cells.
And you're still dealing with your gut. You're still dealing with all the fundamentals.
Absolutely. So I'm extremely vigilant in maintaining a very healthy gut using spore-based probiotics. I use a variety of products from microbiome labs because I think they're on the cutting edge to really improve the gut. And the gut, in my opinion, and from a lot of research, medical, peer-reviewed, double-blind studies, the gut is definitely the source of the breakdown that slowly can manifest into a host of chronic and autoimmune diseases, including MS. So I think the gut is critical. Not the only thing, far be it. You have to have a healthy gut and everything else has to be correct. But if you don't have a healthy gut, everything else you do, I think, is going to be either a failure or is going to be very difficult to deal with, because the unhealthy gut is always going to be the overriding factor.
So what's also interesting is you've been a teacher your whole life, obviously, and you've written books and you've taught in periodontics and as well and as many other avenues. So somebody that's newly diagnosed with multiple myeloma or newly diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I mean, there's a moment of desperation, there's a moment of fear, and how did you deal with that?
So one of the things that I did was, when I made my first appointment with my oncologist, I had my wife and 2 adult children with me at the appointment. They were prepared to ask questions, and as I did. And I chose an oncologist who, in my opinion, is the most empathetic physician I've ever met in my 72 years of life. So although he's conventional, he is extremely empathetic and open to other suggestions, although that's not how he treats his patients. So we had a very frank discussion, and we all asked questions. And one of my questions was, is my disease curable? If he said, yes, I can give you an 80% cure rate if you follow this cocktail of chemical therapeutics, I would probably have said yes, even though there are side effects. If that was the cure rate, 80%, no, I'm going to go probably with it. But he was very adamant and said, I cannot tell you these drugs are going to cure you. As a matter of fact, there is no cure for your disease today. Now, he said, under those situations, he could concur with me to go with a more alternative, unconventional approach, maintaining my quality of life, because I would still die from the same complications of multiple myeloma if I did the chemotherapy route. It's just that I would have had more years of life. But the big caveat was the quality of life would have decreased. Maybe not, but the chances of the quality of life decreasing were significant. And you know what? It's interesting. Everybody defines quality of life differently, and side effects differently. For example, an oncologist will never tell you about oral mucositis that you can get from radiation treatment and chemotherapy drugs. That's considered a side effect. Well, if you've had oral mucositis, which are ulcers in your mouth and all through the mucosal membranes from your mouth to your anus, and you dealt with the severe pain and the difficulty in swallowing, that's a complication. That's more painful than the disease of multiple myeloma.
You know,
So,
that our whole careers, we dealt with that.
So how could I accept those theoretical complications as normal and decrease the quality of my life until I could overcome that particular side effect? And then I'd have a different side effect later on and another side effect later on. And I would just be decreasing the quality of life all along. I do have a quality of life issue right now, and that is the potential for pathological fractures. That is my biggest fear, because I can tell you it is excruciatingly painful to fracture a femur. It is excruciatingly painful to literally fall and fracture a femur and ribs and a humerus of your arm all at the same time. That brought me to the precipice of wanting to die. I didn't, and I considered it, and I was in hospice because I thought I was going to die, but I rallied. And again, that X-ray that you have showing the callus of bone, if my disease was so terrible and my alternative therapy was not touching the ability of my bone to heal,
right,
I could never have healed that bone, in my opinion, the way I healed my bone if everything in my body was going downhill.
Yeah, my wife and I both looked at that X-ray and we were both in awe, because how is
my
that
orthopedic
happening?
surgeon was in awe. He said, I can't believe this. My oncologist was in awe. He said, I can't believe this is healed this well.
That's a great point, because the callus is forming, and it is forming in a big way.
Yes, huge. It looks like
Huge.
another elbow.
Looks like another elbow. So
And how could that bone deposit in the right place if I didn't have control of my calcium and not going into my arteries, going into where the bone needs to be repaired? That's a great point.
But bisphosphonate would do.
Yeah, bisphosphonate's scary stuff.
So then you're still following the Wallace protocol. You're still getting all the nutrients. You're doing all.
Well, yes. So I certainly have had that kind of a diet all along. Being in the hospital, I'm eating hospital food. What can I tell you? I'm picking and choosing.
Right.
So I would say that the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, my diet has been compromised. Once I get home, I'm going to be cleaning up my diet and getting back into my routine. And with all organic, lots of vegetables, and, a Wallace type protocol is definitely the way to go.
The things you've been doing for quite a few years.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that X-ray in itself then is proof that good nutrition, good mental hygiene, good. I mean, this is
I'm thinking it's proof, it's N equals 1. How can that be proven? Because there's no control. But to me, where I am in my life, hearing my physicians look at that picture and say, wow, I can't believe this is healed so well, knowing the disease I have to believe that my lifestyle, my diet, my pulse electromagnetic field therapy, all of these things are contributing to the healing. The only thing that is not improving, and it could be that it's too far gone, are the general holes throughout my skeleton. And I do believe it started with one malignant plasma cell, maybe around dental school years.
Very, very much so. Very much. So he's talking about more in cancer, right? It only takes one cell to go awry, and then cells they go over and over and over and they
Correct.
grow. So whatever type of cancer we're talking about, so it only takes one malignant cell to go awry. So whether it be skin cancer, what have you. So how's your family? How's your wife? How's your kids dealing with it?
My kids are great. My kids live a distance from me. So one's in Charlotte, one's in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. So it's 3 to 4 hours by driving to get to them. And they have their own lives, of course, and they are children. So they certainly are amazingly supportive. My wife, of course, is dealing with it in a very stressful way. And you can imagine, I know that your wife would be dealing with it in a stressful way. My wife knows I'm going to die, and I could die very quickly. Seeing my body crash and burn with every pathological fracture I've had is only confirming the fear that I believe is in her eyes. It was a time when she was crying every day. I mean, when we woke up, she was in tears. And so I feel for her. It pains me to see that. It hurts me more than my condition. And I'm not going to get better. It's not like I was hit by a car and I'm going to get better, or I had, a disease that you take some medicine and you give it time and your body heals and everything is cool. It's not like I had a stroke and I repaired myself and I survived. This is something I'm not going to survive from. I just don't know how long I will survive until it overwhelms me.
So how important would you say mental attitude, mental
Everything.
hygiene?
Absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. Now I'm human and I get depressed. And when I get depressed, I go to the depths of depression. But I'm even writing an article I'm going to publish tomorrow on my website about making the best of the worst. And one of the things that has helped me is I love to write. So one of the things that has helped me is that when I'm really feeling I'm going to get depressed, just start writing a story, writing an article, writing something about my feelings. And then as I write, it almost diffuses the deep-seated depression. And by the time I'm done, I feel better. And that works for me. Obviously, it doesn't work for everybody, but for me, that works. I think that support groups work. I think that getting within your mind works. I think certainly meditation works. We talked about this organization called the Monroe Institute that has literally courses and sessions on mind expanding technologies. That helps. When you start to think outside of the box and into the universe, even if you don't believe in a higher power. The atheists still believe something. They believe that they're in total control. That's fine. That's a belief. And if you can open up your mind to that belief system that you are in control, you can take control, even though the outcome may not be ideal, you can get better until that outcome becomes finalized. It's empowering because what's the option? The option is go into a state of depression and you're going to sit there being miserable and blaming everybody. I see that. When I go to the cancer clinic, which I do on a monthly basis for tests or whatever, I see people that are really sick looking. Their lives are not happy. Now, some people are very happy, but I see a lot of unhappy people. I think that it's not the medicine, it's the attitude. The medicine may make them feel badly, but it's your attitude, how badly that affects you. You can still look on the other side. You ask a person, do you see this glass half empty or half full? A positive attitude would say, it's half full. I see it rising. And a negative attitude is half empty and it's draining itself. So if you are draining your spirit, your motivation, your disease is going to get worse. If you are uplifting it with emotional support, and again, I think there's energy involved here. There are endorphins that are being generated in your body that have healing potential when you are positive. I think that is a very healing factor. And on my best days, I believe that I do that. But I have some bad days, and I have days when, if you look at me, you would say, boy, you have given up. And at that moment, maybe I have. But that's not the way I am. 98% of the time, I'm on the other side of that coin.
So I've had the opportunity to deal with a lot of hospice workers, and I give them such great admiration. And, most of them will tell me that all the patients eventually get the transcendence. Some take longer than others. And when we talk about transcendence, like getting to the point that you're at, how do you get there? I mean, does it take like a big slap in the face? I mean, like what does it take? I mean, for me, it probably does.
That's a great question. Never thought about it specifically, but I would tell you that, again, a belief system is critical. I have friends and relatives that are extremely religious. They believe in their religion believes very strongly in Jesus Christ, and they have this feeling that Jesus Christ has their back, and that everything is the will of God, and they're comfortable with that. I have a different feeling. I don't believe in an entity like that. I believe in the soul. I believe that it's not that I don't believe in Jesus Christ. I believe
I get
certainly
you.
Jesus Christ and all these religious leaders in many, many religions existed and did some powerful work. But I believe that our souls are the power source. And the ultimate power source is God. So you can define God in all kinds of ways. I define God as this huge, powerful energy source that I can't even imagine, but controls the entire cosmos. It's not like just even Earth, it's everything. It's inconceivable in my mind how to define that power source. But I think that power source exists, and we are evolving to come into being with that power source. So this has given me comfort, just like people that strongly believe in Jesus Christ or any of the other biblical entities that are at the core of their religion. They believe in that, and that gives them comfort. So I think that helps with the concept of transcendence. I also believe, again, that being in a state of denial is very counterproductive. And you have to start right in the beginning and say to yourself, this is the way it is. You can't say it's not possible, or you can't blame a person or even God that this is happening to you. And why you're a good person, why is this happening to you? You can't go there. We are all afflicted with all kinds of issues. So this is your affliction, and we have to deal with it. Now, I think research helps for me. So I do like research, and I immediately, when I met with my oncologist and found out what I had, I immediately went to sources in PubMed, which is pubmed.gov, which is a resource of all kinds of medical papers from all over the world that is in one source of a website that's run by NIH, and you can find all kinds of studies that may give you an inkling of other options that are not necessarily known by the general medical public, because physicians are not going to do a lot of research in that regard. So you as an individual can be very specific and pinpoint the things that you have, and start reading up about it and see what are other options, and weed out the junk and weed out the quackery, because there's a lot of quackery in treating, let's say, cancer and any other chronic diseases. You have to read things that are replicable. So you read a variety of papers that support the same idea. That gives you a better a reliability than if you only find one paper that talks about, let's say, this nutrient, and that's the only paper that talks about this nutrient, that's a miracle drug. Well, you probably have found a piece of quackery that doesn't work. The research has to be replicable, meaning that whatever this particular research team has found can be repeated by another research team in another part of the world, researching and studying patients that have the same disease and getting the same results. If you can't get the same results, then it's probably inconsequential.
So the grand thing right now is all this microdosing, and we talked a little bit about like psychedelics, and then you talked about the Morris Institute. All this way of kind of cheating and getting past of our brains so we can get to this place. What's your feeling on that type of idea?
So I have participated in the Monroe Institute. I've gone through 2 of their many programs. The first program that everybody has to go to is Gateway. Gateway is the introduction to the mind, physical body, spirit type of concept. And it's a 5-day, 6-week, all-encompassing experience where maybe 15 to 20 people at a time, there's no more than that, deal with the ability to alter their states of consciousness using a concept of synchronizing the wave balance in the right and left hemisphere. It's quite unique and it's quite exciting, and it's been well documented, and you get into a state of transcendental meditation within hours as opposed to within years of study. So you experience some wonderful things, and you learn and experience a whole lot about yourself and about the powers to be. So I think that's very beneficial. And certainly just simple meditation is very beneficial. You can find a quiet space and make it comfortable and not obviously noisy or disruptive, and let your mind wander and let thoughts come into your mind. People, when they start to become introspective like that, get a lot of sense of well-being, and that works for me. If you are tense or uptight, hypnotherapy might be very, very helpful. If you could find a good hypnotherapist and maybe help you relax and help you get into your subconscious and superconscious brain, that might work for you too. I think that you have to kind of shed the id and the ego and let your body just kind of float and let other thoughts come into your body and your mind.
So then would it be safe to say, and I understand there are people with chemical imbalances and serotonin is an issue for some people, but by and far, the world we live in is a pill for every ill, right? So if you're depressed, here, take this. If you're this, take this. So what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is this is an active, really. Recovery has to be active no matter what we're talking about, especially the mind. You can't just take the pill and sit back and wait for something magical.
I don't think the pill works. 80 or 90% of the serotonin that's produced in your body comes from the gut lining. So I think that you have to get your body in tip-top shape. So let's identify you have a disease that's manifesting, and you may need certain things to help with the symptoms. Obviously, you don't want to be in misery, but you have to still get into and peel the layers of the onion back and figure out what's causing it. And certainly the diet, which is affecting the gut, it's affecting your ability to absorb nutrients. So if you have a good diet, but you have an unhealthy gut, all the good nutrients are still going out the other end.
Can you just repeat that? Because I'm stuck on this right now. You said the majority of serotonin is produced by the gut?
In the mucous membrane, as I understand it, yeah.
Wow.
And much of your immune system is in your gut lining, and the cells that line the gut affects your immune system. And that's why there are so many chronic inflammatory states that begin as the gut breaks down the barrier between the lining of the gut and the rest of your body. You know, the gut is a tube going from your mouth to your anus, and it's literally external to your body. And the lumen is made up of all the things that you're eating and the bacteria, and nothing is in your body until it gets absorbed or breaks through the epithelial barrier between the lumen and your blood system. And that barrier is a 1 cell layer thick, and it replaces itself every 2 to 3 days. But if things get in because it's damaged that shouldn't get into your blood system, or the gut bacteria just will not allow the nutrients to be absorbed, and it just causes the nutrients to pass through your body, you're not getting the benefit of this wonderful diet. So you have to have a healthy gut, and the mucous membrane has to be healthy. The epithelial barrier has to be healthy. And you have to have the diet that supplies the nutrients so that it can get absorbed through these membranes. And of course, a lifestyle that supports health. You're not going to be a smoker and do all these wonderful things and say you're healthy. I mean, you're not, and you can't be.
So everything, it goes full circle. So
right, you have to do everything.
You have to do everything. Your mindset's going to affect your gut. Your food's going to affect your gut. Your sleep's going to affect your gut. Your hydration's going to affect your gut. I mean, this is everything goes around and around.
We're a complex machine.
And the gut, the microbe of the gut may be more important than the microbe of your brain. I mean, the control.
Well, I think there's a relationship, and I think that the microbial community in your gut literally talks to many, many organ systems. Some papers that I've read show that there is crosstalk between all mucous membranes, meaning that the mucous membrane in your gut is in communication, so to speak, and it could be chemical and it could be electrical with the mucous membranes of your lungs and the rest of your tissues. We are a fluid structure and an electrical structure.
My daughter's home from retreat.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah.
How old is she?
She is 15.
What a great
going on 45.
I know. This can be a rough time.
My boys are far less complex than she's got a lot of stuff in her going on.
Yeah, that's an exciting time now.
Yeah. So wow, I'd love to have you on the show because everybody wants the recipe. Like, what is he doing for his gut? What are the steps he's following? I think that everybody's going to want the breakdown.
Well, I think, again, we've talked about it in the past. I think that ultimately everything is integrated, but initially we've got to change our diet and lifestyle. So let's use that as the first step. All of the supplements that I take, really, I don't think will help me if I don't have the right diet and lifestyle. So let's clean up the diet and lifestyle. And Terry Wallace does a really good job, as you know, in building up to the ideal diet and lifestyle. You don't have to do everything at one time, but you need to slowly progress. And I agree with that, of course. And then along with that, you need to think in terms of, in my opinion, getting a good, healthy gut, getting a good, healthy immune system, getting a good, healthy, in my situation, bone structure metabolism, and support that with an attitude that is conducive to healing. We need to increase the health of our mitochondria, which are the batteries of every cell in our body except red blood cells, because they don't have mitochondria. So the mitochondria become dysfunctional in every disease known to mankind that's chronic. So we need to do whatever we can do to support the mitochondria. And there's some interesting things that support the mitochondria. Intermittent fasting and general fasting supports the mitochondria. High intensity interval training supports the mitochondria. Sleeping at the proper time during the circadian rhythm, understanding that we should rise when the sun is up and maybe start to think about getting to sleep after the sun sets. This is part of our biological clock. It supports the mitochondria. And like I have discussed with you, I use a technology called pulse electromagnetic field therapy. I would suggest your listeners go to pubmed.gov, and just put in PEMF therapy. And you will be amazed as to the hundreds of peer-reviewed studies in medical journals. This is not anecdotal. And these are controlled, some animal, definitely some human studies that show how it improves healing of bone, healing of soft tissue, being utilized actually in the NASA program with astronauts to prevent osteoporosis. These concepts are critical for our body healing. Now, I would not suggest a person use PEMF therapy and not have a healthy lifestyle or healthy diet. All of this has to be in place. But when you get the basics in place, then look at the other alternative means to support a healthy body, especially if you're not healthy, like myself. I need everything that I can find that makes sense to me and doesn't decrease the quality of my life. And then there's another practical side. There are costs to treating your body, and financial costs. And I'm going to talk, and it may not make sense, but I can't afford a $500,000 treatment out of my pocket or $1 million treatment out of my pocket. I can't afford traveling all over the world to treat my disease. It doesn't work. And if I could afford it, or I could go into debt, why would I do that? And when I die, which I'm going to die, have my wife deal with all these financial obligations after I die? She's going to deal with so much more. Why would I want her to do that? So it's got to be practical. We have to do things that are practical and functional and make sense to us, in my opinion. I mean, this is the way I believe. I'm not telling anybody to do what I do. I'm just telling you this is what I do. And amazingly, I'm having a great quality of life. I am sitting at Roper Hospital Rehab Center, one of the best rehab centers in all of the state of South Carolina. And why is it the best? Well, they have physical therapists and occupational therapists that work with you all day. I have a schedule every day of approximately 3 hours of intensive therapy, not all at one time, but spaced out during the day. And they address my problems. So it's one-on-one. We do some things in groups. It's phenomenal. And this is extremely supportive for my physical compromised state right now. I'll literally graduate from this, get home, probably have in-house physical therapy. Maybe I'll be an outpatient. Right now I'm an inpatient. I'm in the hospital, but I'll be an outpatient for a while and slowly get my body as best as I can. This is all part of my attitude to do the best that I can do. Meanwhile, I will still have multiple myeloma and it will be terminal, and I will have to deal with that in time. But if my attitude is right, maybe I can do all of this and just drop dead, which would be the beautiful thing. Like Mark Sisson says, live long and then drop dead. Yeah, and that's what I would like to do. I would like to live long with quality and then drop dead. We're all going to die.
I had a very close Asian friend that said this whole idea of fear of death is a westernized concept. You know, he grew up, people got old, they continued to get old, they worked, they were productive, and then they died. It was a beautiful thing. Yeah. And there was no fear. There was no leading up and, you know.
Well, let me tell you something about that, because you brought that subject up, and it's very important to me because fear of death, I think, is on the mind of everybody. Hospice does address this, and hospice will, in very clear terms, discuss and describe the death process. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. And they've done that with me, several individuals in hospice. We've had long discussions of what it's going to be like to die. I want to know. I've talked to my oncologist. Well, what will kill me? He told me the manifestations of this disease that could kill me. Hospice has talked about their patients and as they help them to go through the death process and what to experience. What I've learned from Michael Newton and other readings and the expression of what the death process is, it is a beautiful thing. Our society poo-poos, not poo-poos, but condemns the concept of having a discussion about it. My parents, my mom especially, never would mention the word death. My dad was literally dying. She refused to have hospice come in because we couldn't mention the word death in our household. Death is natural, and let's make it that way.
Where do you think, I'm going to push it to, but where do you think that fear, where do you think that anxiousness comes from? Like, where is that?
I don't know. Maybe the media reading, people die screaming and yelling, pain. You see all these traumatic injuries and a person dies. So you see the trauma of death. I don't know, but I've read that if you were in a state of a traumatic accident, your soul leaves the body before it dies. I don't know that this is true or not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. If that gives me comfort and solace, then I'll believe it. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. If it makes me feel better. I don't know. But we promote this in our society, like you said. Other societies, certainly primal societies, respect death. In New Orleans, they honor death. So, death is just part of our lifespan.
1 second, sweetie. Okay. Yeah, my 5-year-old. So she doesn't care about any of what we're doing.
That's okay.
Yeah. Wow.
This is how I see it.
It's a wonderful way to see it, because even though I don't have multiple myeloma, I can identify with a lot of what you've said, because
look at that beautiful girl behind you.
See, it's that kind of thing, right?
Love her hair. Look at that.
She's got her mom. She has her mama's hair. So when I'm in my deepest, darkest times, I gotta look at that, and I gotta say, you know what?
See, doesn't that bring you out of that deep, dark moment? So what I'm saying and what I'm writing about tomorrow is the memories that we've made all of our lives, and the only thing that we have. The material things just disappear. It makes no sense. But all the memories that are basically indelible in our brain are the things that give us purpose. The experiences that you've had with your daughter and sons, those are the things that give us purpose in life and a will to live. And in that, just looking at your daughter right behind you, if you were in your deep, dark state, which I am sometimes, and you just looked at that beautiful girl smiling innocently, doesn't it change everything about your state of mind?
If you have eyes to see, it sure does.
Well, all you have to do is open your eyes, because it's always going to be there.
Amen.
And even if you didn't have the photograph, it's in your mind. The memory is in your mind. You don't have to have a picture of it.
You've said that to me before about the memories, and that's really stuck with me. So I could choose to continue to create very wonderful memories, or I could choose to create horrible memories.
Of course, we all can do that. So we have that decision. We have that choice. And even though the horrible memories, like the pain of me falling, crushing, I know that it's a memory, but I don't dwell on that memory. I dwell on the memory of my wife helping me when I was on the floor. I dwell on that memory of her attention and helping me with tough love to get out of my funk when I was, just a self-proclaimed victim after that. Those are great memories. And then all the other memories, your children grow up and you see them and they experience wonderful things and you smile and you cry. And those are the wonderful things that you remember and make all the difference in the world. So you have to dwell on those.
I hope people are really listening, because I think even myself, I have to go back and re-listen to what you said, because you're dealing with somebody, and I'm not kidding about being in the trenches. I mean, you literally are, right? You've broken 3 bones. You've been through hell and back, in my opinion.
Well, actually, let's be actual.
Okay.
I broke 2 vertebrae. I broke 2 ribs. I cracked the pelvis. I severed my femur. I still have a severed humerus, and I broke the other femur. So if we want to talk about bones, I've got lots of bones that have been broken.
All right, you're worse than Evil Knievel.
So, I know.
Holy smokes! I mean, that's somebody I used to grow up on.
I know.
Well, you know what? Our thoughts, our prayers, our vibrations, our good wishes are with you every single day. I'm just so impressed by the fact that you're willing to put yourself out there and say things and do things that we're all thinking. The suicide rate for people with chronic disease is so high.
This is true, and that has to be emphasized. I'll make a statement, and I don't know if you want to cut this out or not, but I will make a statement, and that is modern medicine can extend our lives to the point that we are in a desperate state, but we're still alive. Normally, our bodies would not get to that point and we would automatically die. I do believe that hospice is an opportunity, and again, you may want to cut this out, to allow our bodies to die naturally, utilizing some medicines that may, I dare say, hasten the process. I think it's a beautiful thing. If we're going to die and it's time to die and our bodies need a little bit more of a push to get there, I think hospice helps in that regard. Hospice will not ever kill a healthy person. And if we're not ready to die, hospice will not do that. But if we are ready to die, I understand suicide is an option. I'm not going that route, but I would go the route that hospice helps me with pain management to the point that it will assist me in dying comfortably. You can define that in other ways, but that's how I'll define it right now.
To me, it's beautiful what you just said. It's beautiful. So
always understand that that's an option for people that believe in that process. Some people don't, but I believe in that process.
My belief system has changed so dramatically in the last, like you said, you're forced out of your shell sometimes, and maybe that's the beauty. Yes, that's the beauty, the lessons that you continue to learn. So I'm not going to take any more of your time. I mean, what you said is profound and awesome. And do you have any more therapy for today? I hope not.
No. So my therapy today, because the weekend is very, very light. It's only an hour today and an hour yesterday. Tomorrow, I just was looking at my schedule, and I start therapy starting at 8:30 and I end at 4 o'clock, but it's all broken up, but a total of 3 intensive hours. When I'm doing therapy, they work my body. They do work my body, which is great. And this is what I'm here for. Stretching and working my body to get better and be more mobile, which is what definitely I want to have.
It's awesome. You're still in the game. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Well, thank you. It's always great to talk with you.
It's always a pleasure. I love it. Like I said, whether you realize it or not, you become a mentor, you become a friend, you become a colleague. I don't know, everything that you could become, you have.
Yeah, and we're both dentists.
We
have all the same upbringing, professional upbringing.
And toxins and everything else. But
yeah.
But it's all part of it. It's all part of it. Be well, my friend.
I will. Enjoy your beautiful family. And actually, what is it? It's like 5 p.m.
Yeah.
They'll serve dinner in a little while, and I'll watch some football, and then I'll go to bed.
Be well, my friend.
Take care. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.